Above the world of Haven's Rest, 3 sleek Qatar stealth cruisers slipped out of hyperspace like silent predators. Their hulls gleamed with the deep violet of the hegemony warfleet, and their weapon systems hummed with restrained violence. Supreme Commander Smol had chosen this target with precision. He wanted not a military victory, but a psychological wound, one so deep it would echo across human space. The order was simple. Strike at the New Dawn orphanage. Kill the children. Send a message. Captain Zarth, commanding the lead cruiser Death's Honor, studied the peaceful planet below. His eyes betrayed no feeling. To him, this was merely duty. Humanity, in his view, had expanded too quickly, too recklessly, into Qatar space. The hegemony would remind them of their place, not with fleets or armies, but with fire raining down on the innocent. On the surface, morning sunlight washed over the orphanage gardens. Laughter carried across meadows where 247 children played, ran, and learned. The New Dawn orphanage was a sanctuary, a place where those who had lost everything to war found safety, and perhaps a little hope. Lisa Bennett, once a medic, now its caretaker, was reading to a group of 7-year-olds when the alarm came. Her communicator pulsed red. The word struck her like a blow. Hostile ships detected. Immediate evacuation. 12 minutes. She steadied her breath. "Children, we're going to play a very important game," she said, masking terror with calm. "Everyone hold hands. We're going to the safe rooms downstairs." The shelters had been built long ago, heavy doors sunk deep beneath stone. Most believed they would never be used. But Lisa had always insisted on drills, even when others thought her too cautious. Now, every second mattered. How do you shepherd nearly 250 children through narrow stairways and steel blast doors in less than 12 minutes? As she worked, far beyond Haven's Rest, Captain Jake Morrison was 3 systems away, aboard the destroyer USS Ranger. Just 2 days earlier, he had visited New Dawn, bringing toys, books, stories of distant stars. He had grown up there himself, after his parents died in a mining accident. Lisa had been like a second mother to him. Then the call came. Lisa's voice, raw and urgent, crackled through subspace. "All ships, this is Haven's Rest. Hostile vessels in orbit. We're evacuating children. New Dawn Orphanage has 247 souls on site, we require immediate protection." Jake froze. He could still hear their laughter from his last visit. Still see their faces. And now, they were in the crosshairs of an alien fleet. His hands moved with instinct. Ranger leapt to maximum velocity, engines screaming toward Haven's Rest. But space is cruel. 6 hours of distance stretched between him and the children. Too far. "Patch me through to Lisa Bennett," he ordered. Her voice reached him as she guided children through the shelters. "Jake, I know you can't get here in time. If something happens, tell them we weren't afraid. Tell them the children were brave." Her words were steady, but Jake could hear the sound of rubble collapsing, of terrified voices in the background. He clenched his fists, powerless. Meanwhile, Captain Zarth prepared to fire. 30 seconds to weapons range. From orbit, the orphanage looked so ordinary, gardens, playgrounds, sunlight glinting from rooftops. Nothing about it suggested the terror below. The alien captain gave the order. Plasma lances carved down from the heavens, red lightning splitting stone and steel. The library vanished in fire. The dormitories erupted into collapsing walls and screaming silence. Lisa held little Danny Torres, an 8-year-old who had already lost his parents, close against her chest. She whispered stories of stars and adventures, trying to drown out the sound of destruction above. Around her, children huddled together in the shelter, some weeping, others whispering comfort to one another, their small courage shining in the darkness. Then the signal cut. Static replaced her voice. On Ranger, Jake listened to the silence, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. His crew stared at him, waiting. None spoke. When the bombardment ended, 169 children were dead. 31 staff perished with them, including Lisa Bennett, her body found shielding 2 toddlers who survived. The Qatar cruisers broadcast their message: "This is the price of expansion into Qatar territory." Then they vanished into hyperspace, leaving only ruins and echoes of laughter that would never return. But Haven's Rest would not fade quietly into memory. Humanity had been struck at its heart. And the galaxy was about to discover what happens when someone makes the mistake of murdering human children. The following morning, news feeds carried images no parent, no living soul, should ever see. Rescue workers pulled small, broken bodies from the ashes. Survivors sat wrapped in emergency blankets, eyes empty, staring at nothing. The memory garden where children planted flowers for their lost families had been blasted into a crater. Across human space, billions watched. And something inside them shifted. Admiral Kate Sullivan of the USS Defiance read casualty reports with a cold fury in her chest. President Amanda Clark addressed the colonies with grim resolve. And Captain Jake Morrison, standing among the ruins of the only home he had ever known, promised Danny Torres and the other survivors. They will never hurt another child again. Not while humanity endures. The Qatar thought they understood war. They believed compassion was weakness. But they were about to learn the truth: humanity's compassion was its most dangerous weapon. Because when you harm the children of Earth, you do not just start a war. You awaken a force that will burn across the stars until justice is done. And in that moment, as Haven's Rest smoldered, a question echoed through human hearts. What is compassion, when sharpened into vengeance? And how far should humanity go to protect its future? Backhand index pointing right. If you were watching this as a YouTube video, this is where I'd gently invite. What do you think? Should humanity ever unleash total war in the name of its children? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to follow the next chapters of this story, don't forget to subscribe. The ruins of Haven's Rest did not echo with war drums or triumphant speeches. Instead, there was silence. A silence that spread through human space like frost crawling over glass. The Qatar expected rage. They expected humanity to throw fleets at them in blind fury, just as other races had done in the past. But Earth did not rage. Earth remembered. Across the colonies, ordinary people carried out funerals. Mothers wept, fathers sat in stunned silence, and soldiers lit candles in quiet halls. Newsfeeds replayed the last transmissions from Lisa Bennett, her calm voice guiding children even as the sky burned. Billions watched, and billions felt something awaken inside them. It was not hatred. Not yet. It was resolve. President Amanda Clark stood before the United Colonial Assembly. Her words were measured, but every syllable carried iron. They thought we would break. They thought fear would silence us. But humanity has endured ice ages, plagues, wars, and extinctions. We have buried our children before, and we have risen again. We will answer, not with terror, not with slaughter, but with precision. They will not know when we are coming. They will not know where we are coming from. But they will know this: no child of Earth dies forgotten. Admiral Kate Sullivan convened her war council aboard the USS Defiance. Around her sat veterans of countless campaigns, men and women who had fought pirates, raiders, and frontier wars. But none had seen what was about to unfold. The Qatar hegemony commands 3,000 warships, she began. On paper, they dwarf us. But they are predictable. They rely on intimidation. On fear. We will not fight them ship for ship. We will cut out their heart. Holograms flared to life, supply chains, fuel depots, shipyards hidden in nebulae. The Qatar relied on vast lines of logistics to maintain their empire. Without them, their fleets would starve in space. Operation Silent Vow begins immediately, Sullivan declared. Small strike groups. Surgical precision. Every target chosen for impact, not just military, but psychological. She paused. And remember, we are not here to slaughter civilians. We will show them a mirror. Every action we take will remind them of Haven's Rest. The first strike came not with fleets, but with whispers. Qatar governors awoke to find their communications hijacked. Screens across their cities flickered with the same haunting image, the children of New Dawn, smiling, holding hands, before the bombardment. A single line of text followed in the Qatar tongue. You killed them. We remember. Then the feeds went dark. Entire systems fell into unease. Soldiers muttered. Civilians whispered of human ghosts, of retribution walking unseen among the stars. The Qatar High Command dismissed it as propaganda. But unease spreads faster than fire. 2 weeks later, a Qatar munitions depot on Valor 9 erupted in a chain of explosions. Surveillance revealed nothing. Only shadows moving at the edge of sensor range. 3 days after that, a fuel convoy vanished in deep space, leaving only wreckage and the words, "For Haven's Rest," burned into the hulls of drifting tankers. Human strike groups became phantoms. They never stayed in one place, never engaged in pitched battles. They struck, vanished, and struck again. And always, they left the same message: we remember. For the first time in centuries, the Qatar felt hunted. But war is never just about soldiers and fleets. It is about minds. And Jake Morrison understood this better than most. Jake had changed since Haven's Rest. His voice, once full of warmth, carried a steel edge. When he spoke to his crew aboard the Ranger, they listened not just to orders, but to conviction. 169 children, he said, standing in the war room. That's the number. I want every one of you to remember it. Because the Qatar think they killed them to break us. Instead, they gave us purpose. We don't kill out of hate. We kill so no more children have to die. Never forget that difference. The crew nodded, silent, eyes hard with determination. The campaign spread like wildfire cloaked in mist. On the colony world of Tarik IV, where Qatar had installed a puppet government, the regime collapsed overnight when every citizen awoke to find their streets painted with glowing human symbols. No one saw who did it. No one admitted to helping. But the governor fled, and resistance blossomed. On the frozen moon of Kesra Prime, a Qatar shipyard went dark for 6 hours. When power returned, every vessel's nameplate had been overwritten with one word: Haven. Even Qatar soldiers began to question. Were humans truly so few? Or had the entire species become shadows in the dark, everywhere and nowhere? In the high chambers of the hegemony, Supreme Commander Smol slammed his clawed fist against the council table. This is not war, it is mockery, he snarled. They refuse to face us in battle. They poison our people with fear. Enough. I will bring the full fleet against them. We will burn their worlds until they beg for mercy. But some of his advisors hesitated. The Qatar had long ruled through intimidation. Yet here was an enemy who grew stronger the more they were attacked. Every child slain became a symbol. Every atrocity turned into fuel for resistance. And deep within Qatar space, whispers grew: what if the humans are not like us? What if they cannot be broken? On Earth, meanwhile, the survivors of New Dawn became living symbols. Danny Torres, the boy Lisa Bennett had shielded with her body, appeared before the assembly. His voice trembled, but his words carried further than any fleet. They wanted us to be afraid, he said. But we are not afraid. Because we remember Lisa. We remember all of them. And when we remember, they live. Billions watched. And billions quietly promised themselves that no child of humanity would ever be left undefended again. Humanity had not yet unleashed its full strength. Fleets remained in reserve. Massive shipyards still spun quietly in orbit, building weapons not yet revealed. What the galaxy saw was only the beginning: shadows, whispers, precision strikes. But already, the balance was shifting. The Cathar had sought to break the human spirit. Instead, they had taught humanity the power of patience, of silence, of making the enemy fear not what you will do, but what you might do. And in the silence before the storm, the galaxy trembled. Because everyone now asked the same question. If this is how humanity fights in shadows, what happens when they finally step into the light? For the YouTube script, here's the gentle engagement cue. What do you think? Is it better to strike with overwhelming force, or with patience and precision? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And stay with me, because in part 3, we'll see what happens when the storm finally breaks. The galaxy had grown used to the whispers. For months, humanity fought like shadows, sabotaging, striking, vanishing. The Cathar fleet spread thin, chasing ghosts they could never catch. But whispers alone cannot win wars. When the storm finally broke, it broke with a silence so deep that entire star systems seemed to hold their breath. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood at the heart of Fleet Command. Before her stretched not scattered raiders or covert cells, but the full assembled armada of Earth. 200 capital ships. Thousands of escorts. Carriers, destroyers, and stealth cruisers, each forged in secret shipyards, hidden behind veils of misinformation. For years, humanity had prepared quietly, building not for expansion, but for survival. Now, survival meant war. Transmit to all ships, Sullivan said. Her voice carried steady, calm, unshaken. The Cathar believe we are prey. Today, we show them what hunters look like. And across the void, the fleet began to move. The first great battle came at Drelker Station, a fortress world guarding the inner lines of Cathar space. For centuries, it had been deemed impregnable, ringed with defense platforms, shield generators, and fleets numbering in the hundreds. The humans arrived without fanfare. No declaration. No warning. They emerged from slip space in perfect silence, their formation tight, their weapons cold. Cathar commanders scoffed. 200 ships. Against thousands. Then the sky itself turned against them. Human ships unleashed weapons the Cathar had never seen, kinetic lances that ripped through shields like paper, drone swarms that danced between defenses, and railguns that hurled projectiles at fractions of light speed. Entire platforms crumbled before the defenders could understand what was happening. Within hours, Drelker Station burned. Humanity left not a massacre, but a message: we are here. We are not afraid. The galaxy, watching through intercepted transmissions, reeled in disbelief. The prey had become predators. But victory was not measured in battles alone. Jake Morrison, now a captain aboard the Ranger, found himself face to face with captured Cathar soldiers after the fall of Drelker. Their eyes, full of fear, searched his. They expected cruelty, vengeance, the same brutality their empire had shown. Instead, Jake gave them food. Water. Safe passage to prisoner camps run with strict codes of honor. We are not you, he told one soldier quietly. Remember that. For many Cathar, that moment stung more than defeat. To be shown mercy by those they had deemed weak was a wound that cut deeper than any blade. Across the galaxy, neutral races watched carefully. Some had long bowed to Cathar rule, others kept their distance out of fear. But now, whispers spread, the humans rise. The humans fight differently. The Harari, an ancient and enigmatic people, sent emissaries to Earth. Their words were cautious, almost sorrowful. You fight well, one Harari elder told President Clark. But know this, the Cathar are not your greatest enemy. Their empire is built on fear, yes. But there are older powers in this galaxy. Powers that do not roar, but shape entire civilizations like clay. President Clark frowned. Are you saying someone else created the Cathar? The Harari only lowered their eyes. Not created. Shaped. As they have shaped countless others. Be wary, child of Earth. In defeating your oppressors, you may awaken the ones who made them so. The warning lingered like a shadow at the edge of light. But humanity could not pause. War pressed on. The Battle of Koran Reach became a turning point. The Cathar assembled their grand fleet, 2,000 ships, the largest force they had mustered in centuries. Supreme Commander Smol himself took command, determined to crush humanity in one decisive strike. When the battle began, the void erupted with fire. Missiles, rail slugs, energy beams, light and death filled every corner of space. Human ships fought like wolves, never meeting strength with strength, always carving at weak points, breaking formations, sowing chaos. Hours dragged into days. Entire fleets burned. At last, Sullivan unleashed the weapon they had held in secret, the Aegis Array, a network of orbital platforms capable of bending gravity itself. Cathar formations shattered as their ships were torn from position, hurled into one another, or pinned helplessly as railguns cut them apart. When the smoke cleared, the grand fleet of the Cathar was no more. Smol's flagship, crippled and burning, fled into the dark. Humanity had won not just a battle, but the war's momentum. Celebration swept Earth and the colonies. For the first time in history, humanity was not merely surviving but reshaping the balance of the galaxy. And yet, in the quiet after the storm, unease grew. Strange signals began to ripple across the edges of explored space, patterns too complex to be natural, too precise to be random. Entire listening posts vanished without distress calls. Probes sent to investigate returned garbled data, as though their very memories had been rewritten. Admiral Sullivan studied the reports in silence. "This isn't Cathar," she said finally. "This is something else." Jake Morrison dreamed often of Haven's Rest. He saw Lisa Bennett's final moments, her arms shielding the children, her voice calm. But now, in his dreams, her voice was joined by others, voices he did not recognize. Ancient. Cold. "You are not the first," they whispered. "You will not be the last." He woke with a shiver each time, the echo of something vast pressing against his thoughts. In a hidden chamber on Harari Prime, elders gathered. "They move too quickly," one said. "The humans awaken storms before they are ready." Another answered, "Perhaps that is their role. Perhaps they are the spark." And far beyond known space, in the cold between galaxies, something listened. Something old. Something patient. The architects had turned their gaze toward humanity. The war with the Cathar was not over. But already, humanity was beginning to understand, this conflict was only the surface of something far deeper. Because the galaxy was not just a battlefield of empires. It was a chessboard. And the true players were only now stirring. Backhand index pointing right for the YouTube closeout. What do you think? Is humanity ready to face not just an empire, but the ones who built empires as tools? Let me know in the comments. And stay tuned, because part 4 will take us beyond the war, into the secrets of the architects.